Live streaming is on.
Hello, everybody. I think we are live. Let me check, as always, let me check on YouTube to see if we are. Refreshing. Yes, let me cut the sound here. Hello. Yes, we are live. How are you all? Good. I hope you have a good Friday so far. It's really hot here. I hope we survive it. With us is Mr. Meister, Mark Chiarello. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
What do you mean a good Friday so far? I just woke up 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, but here is 5 p.m.
Good morning.
Good morning. How is it? How's things?
Good, really good. Doing a lot of fun work and trying to wake up.
Anything you can talk about?
You
brought it up.
Well, there's a few things I can. I just started just to back up a second, after leaving DC, after being the art director for 26 years, I decided to become an artist again. I've always been an artist, but becoming a full-time freelance artist. So I'm, I've got a bunch of projects that are starting or up and running. Some comic stuff, some illustration. I just did an ad for, the company I think they're in Germany, Carhartt clothing.
Yeah.
I just did an ad. I just did 3 ads for them they're doing sneakers with Converse. So that was really fun to do that. And some comic stuff that I can't talk about. One project I wish I could talk about. I'm so psyched about it. But it's drawing interiors, which,
wow.
Oh my God, it's it's so difficult because I'm used to doing a cover here and there. But man, when you start drawing interiors, it's so much work.
If I move the camera, let me see. There you go.
Oh, wow.
That's
Batman Houdini,
yeah. And that's the only art that Paloma has.
Wow.
That's all. So.
Wow, I'm flattered.
So you see. So yeah. So they're doing interiors again. That's amazing. It's gotta be, daunting after so much time for you, like coming back to the, sequential part of it.
Yeah, it's what it proves to me that, look, we're all incredibly critical people. We're all judgmental and, I hate that guy's stuff. I hate that gal's stuff. Oh, he sucks. But when you're actually doing it, you realize even people whose work you don't like, you have to give them a lot of credit. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. It is. Also, if we go back in time, all your time, as you mentioned, as art director, etc., is something that I've always loved. That is that every project you edited yourself was always looking for something different. Not repeating yourself, but also advancing comics in a way, which is something that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's something that you got from Archie.
Oh yeah, Archie Goodwin. I worked for Archie. My first job in comics was in the mid 80s, mid 80s, and I was at Marvel Comics. A guy named Archie Goodwin ran Epic. The I don't know. It wasn't really the adult wing of Marvel. It was
could be considered that, or the creator owned.
Creator-owned, yeah.
I think it's a bit of both, yeah.
Yeah, a little high-end stuff. We reprinted Mobius's work in America. Beautiful. We did Akira, first English translation of Akira. But I was Archie's secretary. I was Archie's assistant, and it was one of those situations where you want to get into the business, so you'll take any job. And I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, the art school in New York, and my roommates were. I was so lucky. My 3 roommates were John Van Fleet, George Pratt, and Kent Williams.
Okay, we're done, guys.
Yeah, right. And Kent at that time was drawing comics while he was a student, and George was a little bit too. Mm-hmm. And once we got out of school, George said to me, Mark, you know more about comics than all of us put together. I know a guy at Marvel named Archie Goodwin. He's looking for a secretary. Go talk to him. And I knew Archie's writing at that point. And I went and I worked for him. What the greatest guy, the greatest experience that I've ever had. Brilliant writer, the best editor ever in comics, the funniest guy you'd ever meet. I could go on about him forever. Lovely
but
guy.
that's perfect, because he gives me the context to what I was asking about. His way of seeing editing, as at least from my point of view, he was always an innovator, beloved by everybody, but an innovator, a guy who tried, stretch his wings, and also, stretch the theoretical boundaries of comics, to get in somewhere else, way before some other people did, that get all the credit for that. But also, I think that's my opinion. It also affected your vision of what to do as an editor when you got to them, to innovate, to try to stretch, to try to get to places where people usually didn't go.
Well, yes and no. Yes, because I learned some great lessons from Archie. And I've said this a million times. I apologize for repeating, but Archie said, Mark, look, you hire the best people you can. You hire the best guys you can. And I apologize. I use the word guys. I use the term guys. I mean men and women, guys and gals, but I use hire the best guys you can, the best artists and writers you can, and then just help them do what they do. Facilitate. Don't tell Mike Mignola how to spot blacks. Don't tell Tim Sale how to tell a story. These guys are great at it, and that's stuck with me all my years at DC. But one thing that I think you make it sound a little more calculated than it was, like I'm a genius or something, or I'm smart, which I'm not.
Well, I think you're a genius, but that's separate. No, I don't say it's calculated. In fact, I think it's the other way around. It's instinctual. That from what you got from Archie, you built your own idea where you are going to edit something. Your instincts or your drive was, let me try to do what comes to my mind, and in your mind it was to do something different, not calculation but instinct.
Yeah. That's true. What it is when you create a book, if you're an editor or an art director and you create a project, create the project that you want. Look, you have all those books and behind you, I have all these books. Create a book that you want to own, that you want to have in your collection, not just another book, not just, oh, Batman punches the Joker again. Okay, that's fine, but you have to be, the best part of working at DC was working with the artists and the writers, but in the office, the best part was when an editor would say, man, wouldn't it be cool if the Flash did whatever? Or if Wonder Woman was drawn by so-and-so. That was the fun part, because if you start a sentence, wouldn't it be cool? Then you're jazzed to do this. You're excited to do this. It's not just a job.
Exactly. And in your day-to-day now, and compared to the 26 years, what is what you miss the most? The teaching, the being around. Well, this applies to to the apocalypse, the boring apocalypse we're living now. What's the part where you miss the most? And it doesn't have to be DC. Fuck it. The part that you miss the most because of this thing of the apocalypse that you miss doing. That you're like, shit. I hope this ends tomorrow, and I can do the first thing I could do is this one.
Yeah. It's funny because like many artists, I'm a really shy, quiet person. I like to stay to myself. People sort of confuse. I don't like people. Now, people kind of, but I for some reason enjoyed going to the office and being around great designers, great people in the production department, that if you had to produce a book, you say to Allison Gill, the head of the production department, I say, how do we do this? How do we print this on acetate or whatever the thing is? I'm sorry, I miss that. But what I really miss is working on a book, working on a project, and calling up the artist. Because I'm an artist, I gravitate I feel more comfortable talking to artists because we speak that language. But it applies to writers too. But I loved calling up Adam Hughes and saying, look, if he was late with a cover, which for Adam, Jesus, that, you know, he had such a bad reputation, but he was always on time for me. You know, he did several hundred covers for me. But what I was saying was the best aspect of the job was if Adam was late on a cover, I'd call him up and I wouldn't say, dude, where's the cover? I'd say, hey, I saw this Norman Rockwell exhibit in New York in a museum, and they had, you know, that one piece with the girl and she's written whatever. And he'd get jazzed and we would talk about Norman Rockwell, or we would talk about the Beatles, or we would talk about something creative. And that was fun.
Yeah.
And you'd sit there on the phone for an hour or two and you wouldn't talk about work at all. You would talk about art. And when you hung up the phone, when he hung up the phone, he was jazzed to sit down and be creative. And it wasn't a trick because I enjoyed having those conversations. But that's something I really miss, is the connection with all those artists.
Yeah, that's also in a big way, that's the main reason for this. You know, no interviews, no. I remember that Gary Frank, before we did this, he was like, well, shy about it, and he's like, do I have to show my art, or do I have to, like, no, but that's my desk, and he was the desk in one side, you know, his dashboard, and in the other side he had the aquarium, and I was like, I'm more interested in the aquarium.
Right.
He was like, what? Yeah, I'm more interested in the aquarium. The drawing part, everybody knows. Everybody can see you draw. Everybody can see you doing a lesson, you know, in a DC booth or at your home. But nobody knows you have an aquarium and why. That's the part I want to talk about. And if we were like 25 minutes about how the way he relaxes after a hard day of work is to take care of that aquarium. That is his saving space, you know, his safe space. And that's what I love, that we didn't talk about the work, like, because we don't need to. We know each other. Let's just talk about the things we both like. For example, one thing that I love a lot, in your case, as an artist and as an editor, has always been the amazing blend you've always done between design and art. You know, like, there's those two sides that also, you know, I always loved it on Casaday, for example, on John Casaday's covers. When he does a cover, it's always an amazing blend or design and the other part of the art. Is it conscious on your part to work on, you know, as a designer and as a comic book artist at the same time, or is just, again, it's an instinct that's how your brain works?
I was very close friends with the great legendary artist Alex Toth for years, and whenever I came to Los Angeles for business, I would go over his house and we would sit and talk for hours and hours. And I asked him, the master of design, the same question, and he said, "That's such a stupid question. How could you, you know?" And I was hurt for a moment, but I really wasn't. You know, everything is instinctual. You do what you do best. You know, it's fun. It's fun to do something you're good at, even if you don't realize you're good at it. I often equate everything in life to baseball because I'm an American big baseball fan. There's something in baseball called the 5-tool player. You look at somebody like Willie Mays, the great baseball player. You know, he could hit with power, he could throw, he could run the bases. I forget what the other two are. Hit for average. Art is the same way. Comic book art is the same way. You have to be able to draw really well. You have to be able to design really well. You have to have a really good color sense. You have to tell the story, which is the most important of all those things. And I forget what the fifth one is. You know, I think I have 3 of those 5 tools. You look at somebody like Bill Sienkiewicz. He probably has 8 of those 5 tools. Adam Hughes. You look at he could do everything. So if Color.
And if you look at Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, he has 15.
Oh, geez. Let's not talk about Jose Garcia Lopez, you know. Oh, my God. Let's just get it out of the way. The greatest comic book artist of all time.
Yes.
Period.
You
know. You know, so I think that if my tools are design and color and maybe a little bit of storytelling, you rely on those. You lean into those more. You know, I can't draw like Frank Frazetta could. I can't draw like Bill Sienkiewicz can. So rely on the strengths that you have.
Absolutely. But if you could pick a strange question, let's say you are Autobot Chiarello, and Autobot Chiarello can get 5 things, the best from each. You pick 5 artists and the biggest strength from each that you could incorporate into your toolbox. Say like, okay, if I could have from this from Jose Luis, this from Frazetta, this from Adam, blah, 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 whatever. 5 things that you say, this is what would make, I wouldn't say the perfect artist because I don't think that exists. Because
Right.
An artist means to keep improving, to keep trying. And then if not, you're dead as an artist, I think. But what is the things you think, you know, in that sense, you said 5, I go back, 5, you know, the 5 strengths.
Well, the 5th one just popped into my head. Color, drawing. The 5th one is what the French calls the je ne sais quoi, that certain something that you can't define.
Yes.
You know, you look at Gustav Klimt, you look at Egon Schiele. They were great draftsmen, colorists, picture makers, but they had something that you can't define. And the master of that is Bill Sienkiewicz. He can do a drawing, but it's got a little magic to it. So for him, Bill is for storytelling. Absolutely, Alex Toth. He was the greatest storyteller. Somebody asked me the other day. You know, they brought up the question on Mount Rushmore. There's the 4 great American presidents: Abraham Lincoln, George Washington. Who were my friend Steve Mitchell asked me, who were the 4 comic book artists on Mount Rushmore? And I said, that's easy. Alex Toth, Alex Toth, Alex Toth, and Alex Toth. And he punched me in the arm. But Toth was, you know, there's that thing between Toth and Kirby, Jack Kirby and Alex Toth, who was the greatest. They were completely different types of talent. So you certainly couldn't say one was better than the other. They were different. It was apples and oranges. But for me, I think Jack Kirby was the greatest comic book artist of all time, period. He's the Babe Ruth. But was Babe Ruth the best baseball player? And again, I'm back to baseball. I think
doesn't matter. We can say Michael Jordan. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. For basketball, you could say Jordan, and hockey, you could say Gretzky. But for me, Alex Toth was the great storyteller. For draftsmen, but you can't answer that question for draftsmen. There's been 5 or 6 or 7 ridiculously talented. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Frank Frazetta, Adam Hughes. Nobody's as good as Adam Hughes. Mac Rayboy, an old-time artist, was people don't even remember, was this incredible draftsman. So I don't think you'd say that. For drama, Joe Kubert was unbeatable. His stuff was so his picture making and dramatics were just beautiful, just gorgeous. Did you ever meet Joe? Did you ever meet Joe Kubert?
Once, like for like 5 minutes. You know, it's one of the few that I didn't actually get to meet in a real way. Of course, I know Adam and Andy, but not him. Of course, Katie. I know a lot of the family, but his case it was like 5 minutes. And Archie, as I've always told you, you know, one of the things that I've always of the people I didn't meet in person, Archie is the one that I feel more. I could have loved to meet him and, you know, spend, even if it was 10 minutes of my life, just sitting down with him for a coffee.
He wouldn't have made it last only 10 minutes. He would have taken you to lunch and you would have talked about. He We keep coming back to Archie. He was the greatest guy. Oh my God.
Yeah, and everybody, including you above all, but everybody speaks so well about him. And I see if I love his work forever as an editor, and as a writer. So yeah, Archie is the guy that I would have loved to meet. And no, Joe, I didn't get to meet. For me, seeing somebody for like 10 minutes is not really meeting him. If you know me, if I haven't had a chance to sit down and have a coffee with you, it's not really meeting people. It's just hey, hi, how are you?
Yeah, 3 hours go by with you. You used to come into you used to fly into New York all the time, and we'd get lunch. We'd sit there forever and talk bad about people, gossip about people.
Okay, and now you've been around. You've left DC. You're free finally. As many of us, including myself, as we're hoping it happens sooner or later, so you could go back to the drawing board and change the world of comics again. All kidding aside, where do you see comics, be it for you or as an industry, after all this shit with the distribution, blah, 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 where do you see us going? Because with Jimmy, it was really clear. He was seeing, things are going to change. They have to change. He wasn't that sure about the Kickstarters, even if he does it. But I keep repeating, the relationship between the publisher and the reader is going to change, whether they like it or not, because the situation has caused it.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to see how much it has changed, they're going to be in a shitload of trouble in 3 months. Because the readers have reacted and have said, I want my things more directly and with less, interference, with less middlemen. So I want to see, I want to talk, I want a relationship with the creator.
Yeah.
So do you think that's, do you think they really can stop it? Or that's something that is going to happen? The direct relation, more direct relation, even, with the social networks there, which makes even stronger, the link between creator and the fans.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I have no idea. I think that, you talk about Jimmy, most awesome guy ever. Jimmy is one of those few guys who is a really great artist, great writer, but he has that business side to him.
Mm-hmm.
I know very, very few artists who have that business chip in their head.
Absolutely.
I don't. I'm an idiot when it comes to business. I'm like, oh, you want to pay me 5 cents for this drawing? Okay, cool. But you look at somebody like Jim Lee. Jim is a brilliant thinker. He's, he runs DC Comics. I was in so many meetings with Jim. I used to watch, I'm a quiet guy in meetings. I used to watch Jim to see what he would say. And he's not real talkative.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in a meeting like the other 20 people just to bullshit and to make themselves look important.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that got old. But Jim,
you can say it. I don't miss that part.
Oh God, I hate meetings. Well, that ties into the answer to your question. I'll get back to corporate America, but then when Jim would speak up, it was the most astute observation of anybody in the room. That's a rarity for artists, because obviously Jim is one of the great artists in the history of the medium. Very few people have that. I know two brilliant artists who also are brilliant businessmen, Jim Lee and Darwin Cook. Darwin, talk about storytelling, one of the great storytellers ever. I loved working with his, on his stuff. He was such a good thinker. He would answer that question much better than I could. I don't know business. I could talk about Bill Sienkiewicz. I could talk about Tim Sale. I could talk about, that issue of Spider-Man where he fought the Green Goblin. That's the fun stuff to me. Business is a headache. Business makes no sense to me. So I don't know where comics are going. I have no idea. I'll circle back to what I've said about corporate America. I think corporate America. Oh, can I curse on this, by the way? Can I say
You're
that?
in my feed. If there's no cursing, it's not my feed. Of course you can. Please, if you don't curse, I will say out.
Okay.
You gotta do it. It's an obligation. At least 3-4 times is the average.
Okay. Well, I am from New York, so it's going to happen anyway. I think that I feel strongly that I'm really worried that corporate America is fucking up American comics. I'm sure there's some wonderful people who work at AT&T, but they bought DC and they came in and they started making some short-sighted decisions. And I hope the smart people at AT&T can step back and say, hey, wait a minute. Why are we doing that?
Mhm.
It's just to save $7? That's too short term. You're going to kill this industry if you keep doing that stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm a little worried. I was talking to Dave Johnson and Cully Hamner and Jimmy the other night, and I asked them what they think is going to happen with conventions. And I'm worried that these fun comic book conventions that we all go to, we all love, are they going to be the same? I'm not quite sure. I mean, what do you think about that? You run conventions.
Yeah.
Where's it going to go?
I think that is going to go, at least for now, until there's a vaccine, is going to become the small model. I mean, it's going to switch back to the old days. I'm not saying, the old crazy hotel cons, because that would be even worse because of the cramped space. But I think it's going to go smaller, because that's the way to, like Comic Salopia in Britain, or shit, I forgot the name, the one in Italy. There are
Luca?
no, the one, no. Lucas is impossible, because Lucas in the streets, like Angoulême. No, there's another one in Italy that I forgot the name. Probably somebody in the comments will say it. That is, around a castle, really beautiful space, really small, really focused about the art. That's not what I think we are going to go in the short term, because that's the only thing you're going to be able to do. Big conventions cannot happen, because if you get, just because of the economics, I was talking yesterday to the editor-in-chief of Norma here in Spain, and just a matter of, this convention center costs this money. You need to have as many people and as many exhibitors. When people complains to me about, why do you have Netflix or Sony or this other or your con? Like, well, because we have to pay the convention center. And we are not going to get enough people if it's only the comics people. So we need people who is casual to come over, because they want to see the fucking Witcher booth.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, this is what it is. So this is the same thing. If they're going to tell us, hey, 30% people allowed only, you cannot have a convention in a big space, because you cannot pay it. So I think that for now, that's out of the question, at least until there's a vaccine. But after that, when there's a vaccine, I think things are going back to normal, because people will feel safe, except for hypochondriacs, except for the people who gets in mental problems. And I see a lot of people is going to happen, because they get so scared of going out that even when it's safe, they are not going to want to go out. And that's going to happen. Therapy is going to be needed in many cases. That's just how the world thinks. But in a way, I think that when the vaccine comes, people is going to need it so much to go back to big meetings like concerts, theater, movies, conventions, that is going to go back to normal. Even possibly going to grow bigger. Because it's going to be like a year and a half or 2 years of people, just wanting to go out and bend and have fun.
So you're saying they're going to be so hungry for it that everybody's going to go once the vaccine.
Yeah. It's like, think about it this way. People goes crazy waiting for 1 year to go to San Diego.
Yeah.
Imagine if you tell them you had to wait for 2 years.
Yeah.
The hungry of having fun and forgetting about all the shit that has been happening for 1 year. I think that's going to compensate and is going to go back to normal.
That's interesting. I never considered that. I thought people were going to go the opposite way, but you're right. After a year or 2 years, or maybe even 3 years of no San Diego Con, the time they do open up, when they eventually do open up, everybody's going to want to be there at that one.
Exactly. And even your con, in this case, in my case, Barcelona or Madrid, or in Paris Comic Con, or Lucas, you said, or Angoulême, etc., etc. Angoulême was lucky because it happened just before.
Yeah.
But Luca this year, I don't see Luca happening, because, as I said, it's in the middle of the streets.
Enormous, yeah.
So if they look at the Luca, I wouldn't go. The same way, when people ask me, "Oh, do you think New York Comic Con is going to happen?" I am like, no. I'm sorry. Cuomo called Trump asking him to get the temporary hospital open until October. So if they close the temporary hospital in the Javits, let's say October 1, and they tell you in a week you can't be there in the fucking basement. Remember, in the artist hall in the fucking basement, in a place that has been a hospital for COVID-19. Would you go?
No, absolutely not.
Even if they tell you it's completely safe, and I assume it'll be completely clean and safe, what is your brain going to tell you? It's primal instinct. It's like, oh shit,
yeah,
I don't want to be there.
Well, and also, you and I are a little older than the average fan. We're getting a little older. I don't have the drive. Oh my God, I got to go to San Diego Con. Now I look to avoid San Diego Con. I said to somebody one time, I started dating this woman and out here in California, and she said, "Oh, let's go to San Diego Con," and I'm like, "Jesus, do you really want to go?" She said, "I hear it's great," and I said, it's the greatest thing you'll ever do in your life and the worst thing you'll ever do in your life all at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I'm not that hyped to go to the big cons, New York, San Diego. I like the smaller cons. I like the one Sheldon Drum does in North Carolina, Heroes Con, and the one Mark Nathan does in Baltimore. Those are medium-sized cons, smaller to medium cons. Those are fun because you can sit around with Brian Stelfreeze and talk for an hour. You can, there's Mark Wade, there's so-and-so, there's
and that's why I think Baltimore still could happen this year.
I hope so.
That's the only one I think could happen this year because of the size and it's a different animal. It's a different animal. But something like New York Comic Con, Toronto Fan Expo, those kind of really big ones, I don't see them happening. And again, I am not worried about if they can survive, of course. And I really have no worries about Read Pop or Fan Expo, disappearing.
Yeah.
And after 6 months. But if they come back, they will come back really strong. I am more worried about the comic business in the sense of adapt or die. Adapt or die. The situation is telling you to change. Now you either change, or as you said, corporate says don't change, stay back, and then you're like, the wave just passed, and the moment.
Well, don't you think that? And again, I'm not a business head. I don't.
No. I'm not either.
Don't you think that AT&T bought Warner Brothers, which owned DC Comics? Don't you think AT&T, after a few months of letting the dust settle, they looked at the business and said, "Wait, for the millions of comic books you guys sell, there's one distributor? Bullshit. You better branch out." I think that's what DC is looking at doing now, and that's healthy. Hey, Jeppy's an awesome guy, but it's a bit of a monopoly, and you have to.
Let's take a bit. It's a monopoly.
Okay.
It's a monopoly. I have nothing against Jeppy. I've been telling it for weeks and months, but it's never healthy.
Yeah.
That you have one sole distributor that they have problems. You're fucked.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody else to jump to.
Yeah.
Now, at least, with these two distributors and the possibility to just go, what DC and Marvel should have done a long time ago, let's go digital with some things only digital because, we have to do it. The situation has forced their hands. So I hope that, Marvel can find also a way to get to work with more than one distributor, and same with Image and same with the others. I just want new venues. I still think the move that you guys did at DC with Walmart was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Because that got comics to people's hands that never could go to a comic store. I love comic stores, but at the same time, it's like there is product that it has. We're talking about Epic before, Vertigo with Karen. Like, guys, there is product that is not for that store. Maybe why don't we just make a branch that goes directly to those readers that are waiting for it?
Sure. Focus the type of material. Yeah. The Walmart thing came purely out of Dan DiDio being a comic book fan, and he was running DC Comics with Jim Lee, and he wanted comics to be accessible, fun, big comics like when we were kids, the 80-page giant or whatever, and that's why it was a good business model.
Anyway, let's see what people says. Hello, sorry, if you have something else to say.
No.
Okay. Okay, Felipe Gonzalez, hi, a pleasure to be here. Hello, Felipe. Felipe Brel, when I was much younger, I did not appreciate Frank Robbins and Don Heck. Okay. Felipe Gonzalez asks you, do you think that the painted art or pictorial style was part of your generation, new way of doing comics, or that happened prior to you guys? It was you, the Hamptons brothers, Ken Williams, John Bolton, and many others.
I was lucky to be around when that was happening, when it started happening. Kent Williams, Dave McKean, Bill Sienkiewicz, eventually Alex Ross. No, that was the time that it all happened. There were some. I'm trying to think of some painted artists before then, and maybe Richard Corbin.
Yeah.
But
in European comics for sure, but American comics. No, I don't. I can no. Well, can we consider Frasera?
No, because his comics, he never painted comics. He painted.
That's true.
Paperback book covers. Yeah, I can't think of any. I can't think of the closest. The closest that happened was comics were produced a really specific way, with the for color and printing plates, but then Americans, and Archie was partially one of the guys who did this, was looked at that weird process you guys Europeans did, blue line coloring. It was on the line work was on a piece of acetate, and you would paint on a board and put it down. That gave comics a painted look. I colored a Mobius job one time in that process. He did a Silver Surfer comic book that myself and another colorist, John Wellington, did together. But it had that European painted look to it because it's actual paint.
That has to have been an experience to color Mobius on the Silver Surfer book.
I'll tell you a quick story. Excuse me. I used to after I worked at Marvel for Archie just for about a year and a half maybe, and then after and then I started being a colorist. I said, all my friends are, why are you an editorial? You're an artist. You should do your art. So I became a colorist, and there was a real old timer, a guy named George Russos, who he had a little tiny office at Marvel, at the Marvel offices in New York, and he would sit there all day in the dark and color covers. An editor would come in, Mike Carlin or whoever would come in and say, hey, George, I have this Daredevil cover. Can you color it for me? So he would sit there and color. He was an older guy, and so he would take Mondays off. So I would come in. Virginia Romita, John Romita Sr.'s wife, used to run the bullpen at Marvel. Well, Virginia asked me to be the person that came in on Mondays to fill in for him. So I used to come in on Mondays, and a lot of editors would save their covers. They know Mark's coming in on Mondays, so they wanted me to do them. So I was in this dark room on a Monday, and I'm sitting there coloring a Mike Mignola cover, I remember. And this guy comes in the room, and it was really dark in there except for this one light. And this guy comes in and says, I would like you to have this. And he gives me a book, and it's the Mobius Silver Surfer book. And I look up, he says, open it up. And I open it up, and there's a drawing by Mobius in the book. For Mark. Jean, what was his name? Jean Girard.
Yeah.
For Mark Jean Girard. And I look up at the guy, and it's Mobius. And I, like an idiot, I said, I swear to God, I said, holy fuck, you're Mobius. And he laughed. He didn't say a word. He laughed, and he turned and he left. And I still have that copy.
So it was his decision that you would color it?
I don't recall. Margaret Clark was the editor. She asked me to color it. I think Margaret had shown Mobius 10 different colorists, and he said, "Oh, I want that guy," which was flattering.
Hey, The master picked you. That's not a bad thing. But did
I
you
was
feel,
only,
did
know,
you
I
feel
was only a
intimidated,
colorist.
or you were just brushed young and said, "I'm gonna kill this"?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you feel intimidated because it was Mobius, or were you just brash and young and said, "I'm gonna show that that guy"?
Well, I was intimidated for the first couple pages, and then the deadline was really tight, so I just had to do it.
Okay,
You know, I was only,
that's a good reason to not have time to be intimidated.
I'm intimidated by everybody. You know, I was only a colorist for a few years. I kind of miss doing that. It's fun. It's like being a kid and with your crayons and your coloring book, you know. But I colored some incredible artists. I mentioned Richard Corbin. I colored Richard Corbin one time. Oh my God, incredible. Gene Colan. I colored John Buscema one time, and I colored Gene Colan one time.
Where did you color, John?
I don't recall. I remember working on his stuff. I can't remember.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It'll come back. It'll come back. So, yeah. Have you ever thought about writing your own stuff?
Sure. Yeah.
Sitting down, you know, like I'm going to do my full book. I'm going to edit myself, write myself, draw it and then I'll see what the hell happens with it.
You know, I have always been a big writer. I write quite a bit for myself. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy it, and I think I'm okay at it. I think I'm pretty good at it, and I would love to write my own comic, and I think I will. I was talking to a friend at Marvel, Ricky Purdon, who you know, Ricky, best guy ever, sweetest guy ever. Love that guy. You know, and after I finished this this book for IDW that I wish I could mention, it's ironic that I ended up being at DC for 26 years because I grew up the Marvel nut, the Marvel thing. Before there was that phrase Marvel zombie, that was us. That was me. You know, and Spider-Man is still my favorite character, Spider-Man and Batman. But, you know, when I was talking with Ricky about possibly doing a Spider-Man project that I would write and draw.
Nice.
So I'm hoping after Corona leaves, they're still interested. I'd love to work on those characters.
They will, and it would be so amazing to see you back at your roots, to see you back at Marvel. So, how many comics have you made a cameo on?
Me as my face,
or somebody else drawing you?
Yeah, a few. Alex Ross put me into, I think, Kingdom Come. My friend, one of my very best friends, Ruben Procopio, drew a Batman 66 issue, and he drew me as they go in like a Starbucks, like a coffee place, and the guy making the lattes was me. He drew me as the barista. So that's funny.
And George drew you in Enemy Ace.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, George Pratt's beautiful, fully painted book, Enemy Ace. I'm the reporter with the long hair. I used to have really long hair.
And then you drew him back on Houdini, right?
Is he in Houdini? I know a lot of my friends are in Houdini. Nell Yomtov is in Houdini, Batman Houdini. Jack Morelli's in Batman Houdini. You know, and that's just like, oh man, I have to draw somebody nailing a nail with a hammer. You say to your best friend who's visiting, hey, just let me take a picture of you real quick. You need
I remember back in the day, you know, more or less at the same time, seeing Enemy Ace, seeing you on Enemy Ace, and seeing him on Houdini. I think it was Houdini. Yeah. And it was like, I think they just swapped, you know, when one was doing one book, like, I'm going to draw you. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, hey, look, I'll say it. The comics business can be really fun to be part of. It can be really, really, you hang out with your pals, you sit around and you can go to, as long as you do the work, you go to a diner at night, you talk about Steranko or whatever. It can be a pain in the ass, and that's where business comes in. But I'm really lucky. You and I are really lucky people to be.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. We know a lot of extraordinary artists, writers, editors, amazing. 99% of the people in this business is amazing people, which also helps. Amazing human beings. So
There's a few not amazing people in our
nope,
business.
no, there isn't. There
We
is.
won't name names, but
Why could we get into the sad side? Let's just talk about the good people. I was it's funny. I was talking to Howard on this, Howard Chaikin, and I was asking him if he missed writing for somebody else. And he was like, well, if you told me I was working with Chiarello again, or with Garcia Lopez again, or with this and this and that, of course I could miss it, because but if it's other people, I don't know if I miss it that much. And I will just in a typical Howard way, he's just slapping everybody except for you and Jose Luis, just so you know.
Right. That's great.
He was telling me that he misses, especially because of this, the hanging out with the friends, hanging out with friends, being at shows, being, just having a coffee, just, he just misses people. Like everything else, I can do the work. I'm used to be at home, but seeing my comic pals, my comic friends sitting around having a coffee and just, having a meal and talking shit.
Yeah.
That's the thing I miss the most.
Yeah. Howard lives about an hour away from me here in California. So sometimes Dave Johnson, the brilliant Dave Johnson, and I'll pick him up in a car. We'll drive out to Chaikin's neighborhood and we'll go to a deli, like old Jewish deli out there, and we'll get sandwiches and sit for hours and talk about stuff, talk bad about people and gossip about people. But that's fun.
That's what you do. I was asking Bill. Bill told me the other day he's moving to a new house. And I was just telling him, "Are you in a rock throwing distance from Mark?" Like, why? Because if you're in a rock distance, he's going to throw a rock at you. Don't you wake up? I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be close, but I want to be close. He was telling me exactly the same thing. He wants to be close to you and the others, so you guys can hang out together.
Yeah.
What is when you saw an artist first? Of course, I know you're going to say storytelling, but because it's what we need. This is that's always what I always tell to artists. First, you got to know how to tell a story in comic form, and then there comes the rest. But what's the first thing you sat down, you saw a portfolio, the first impression that you went for? The thing that you open and said, this is the first thing I am going to focus on.
I think I was good at my job as an artist.
You were absolutely amazing. I have seen guys, let me tell you this. Sorry to interrupt. I have never seen a better teacher in this business than this guy. A better teacher, a better giving lessons to a new artist. And I remember the first time with Ramon, with Jesus, just sitting down and telling them, with that old book you have with pictures.
Yeah.
Yes, the portfolio and the details. They told me they learned more from that half an hour than they had in 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That makes me feel good. When I look at someone's portfolio, I know immediately, and you do too, David, you do too.
Yep.
I know immediately who they are as an artist and as a person. I know I could see their career. And I recall saying, I looked at a portfolio one time and I recall it was really good. But there were some major flaws to it. And I said, listen to me. Here's what you got to work on. Work on this, consider this, do this. And I'm always very nice to people. I remember when I first started working at DC, I went to San Diego Con. They sent me to San Diego Con the first year, and I was supposed to do some time looking at portfolios. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Let me watch another editor do that. And it was an editor who's no longer at DC, but he was really mean. He was really shitty. If I can use that New York phrase, he was really shitty to this young artist. And man, I said to myself, never do that, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
This person's just, whether they become somebody famous, whether they work in the industry, it doesn't matter. It's important to them. Don't crush them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always taken it really seriously. And So back to that story, I was looking at this guy's portfolio, and I was saying, you have to work on these few things. You're really talented. You have to work on these few things. And I started saying what were his slight weaknesses were. And he's looking at me like he's all mad at me. He was pissed off at me. And he was kind of like not paying attention. I said to him, dude, I'll leave you with one thing. You're either going to be one of the biggest artists ever to work in this business, or you're going to be nobody. The choice is up to you. And he said, okay, great, thanks. And he took his portfolio and left. I never saw that guy again. He never worked in the business. You have to, I really feel humility is a really important thing in life.
Yeah.
But also with your work. Hey, look, as well as I do, artists are this weird mix of incredibly insecure people and the most arrogant assholes you'll ever meet. We're all the same person. It's your job as an agent, as a representative, as an advocate for artists and creators. It's your job to be a therapist, be a psychologist, and figure out how to work with this immature guy or this really nice, talented person. That's difficult. I'll do a painting, and when I'm done, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a piece of shit this is. And I'll go up to bed all depressed, and the next morning I'll come down and look at it and go, wow, that's pretty good. We're so psychologically unbalanced when it comes to your own
But
stuff.
it's also getting some distance from the art. When you are just like focusing on doing it, of course, when you finish after 20 hours with it, you're like, fuck, this is But then the next morning you have rested, you see it, and of course you're gonna find flaws, because that's what makes you an artist and striving to get better at all times. But you see it with some distance, and then it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. That's the best psychological part. That when you get distance, your brain is telling you, hey, stop, stupid. It's not that bad.
Well, hopefully you're onto your next job, so you're not so worried about that Batman thing you just drew.
Yeah, I remember always Pacheco getting people, advice years ago, artists, and I think it was to Manuel Garcia, and he said, page delivered, page forgotten.
Yeah.
You're on a monthly, page delivered, page forgotten. You cannot be going back to that page every 2 days, every day. It's done, because if you do it, you'll go crazy.
It's a business. You have to move on. You have to move on. That's hard. That's hard.
Absolutely. But then we're talking about that quality, that humility, but that's gotta be a part of it. I mean, I remember back in the day, I won't name names, but you will know perfectly well the artist I'm talking about. He was the biggest guy in the industry, and he thought he was untouchable, and he thought, I can do 5 books a month. Doesn't matter. The quality doesn't matter, because I'm the biggest artist in the industry. Right. And in 2 years, he was out of most of them. And in 4 years, nobody wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment an artist loses that humility, that self-hatred in a way, is not, but you know what I mean. The moment you lose it is the moment that you're death. I think that as any kind of creator, you're death if you don't defy yourself at all times.
Yeah.
You gotta think your work is crap, because that's the only way your brain works to make you improve.
Yeah.
And that's why you're not the same Mark that was 30 years ago as an artist, right?
Right.
Question.
Well, if I can just interject, I tell I used to tell, I have to take off the art director hat and be the artist again. I used to tell every artist, every young artist whose portfolio I looked at, I used to say, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't be an asshole. And they would, they'd be like, what? What did you just say? Think about it. Even the great artists, if you're a jerk and I'm an editor, why would I want to work with you? Well, sometimes I have to, because you're a brilliant, famous artist. And there are, dude, as well as I do, there were 3 or 4, no more than 5 great, brilliant, genius, fabulous, sellable artists who were jerks, who were just the worst people.
Like three, four guys who can afford being an absolute asshole. Yes.
Yeah. But man, so if you're a young artist, why be an arrogant jerk? I want to work with someone who's fun to work with, you know?
I don't want to, even as a, maybe that's a stupid comparison, but even as a guy who runs cons, sometimes in private, of course, people ask me, why don't you never invite that person?
Yeah.
Because I don't want assholes. I want people who has a good relationship with other people, that they can behave as a family or as a tight group, and I don't want the asshole in the middle who everybody hates.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It's like, oh, but that's such an amazing big artist. You could get a lot of people. I don't care. You don't get it. If it's disruptive or she's disruptive, it's not going to work. It's going to have 12 people mad because that asshole is here.
Yeah.
And
the thing they don't realize is we all know who they are.
Yeah.
We all say, oh, man, you talk to so-and-so. What a jerk that guy is. Oh, my God. I want to hang out with the fun people. I want to, like when I lived in New York, I used to go to lunch and dinner with Klaus Janson and John Stanisi all the time. They're fun guys. They're not jerks.
Yes. I remember at some of the DC parties or Marvel parties, I won't name names or who said it or who did it, but like, oh, that's an ego. And 5 seconds later, the same guy saying, oh, that's the artist following his own ego. So we had that at all times. So everybody, as you said, everybody knows. And we like the fun people. Okay. Paola Ventimiglia says, it must be wonderful to have a portfolio review from Mark. Lucky artist. Yes, they are. And yes, it was. I gotta tell you, I was there. This amazing experience. Javi Montes says, not exactly direct advice, but I still use the Photoshop CMYK profile that Mark sent me through David.
Who's Javi?
So Javi Montes. He colored if you remember, he colored the.
No, I know. I remember Javi. Javi's great. He's more. There's nothing I can tell him. He's talented. There's nothing I can tell him.
What he does in French comics, the color has been doing for the last few years.
Yeah, sure.
It's just amazing. Have you thought, or do you have the slightest intention of going back to editing? Like, remember that conversation we had in that Dutch Comic Con? The last dance, in a way. I'm not talking about the Michael Jordan thing, guys. That's Netflix. That's a different one. Like the last dance, saying there's something like that. There's one last bullet, or maybe more, but last one bullet that I have in my head. As I gotta do that before I retire as an editor.
When I left DC a year ago, I got a bunch of offers to be editor in chief of companies and things like that. And I just, after 26 years, I needed some time off. And I always, because I have little faith in my own talent as an artist, I always avoided being an artist and doing that. And I sort of got into editorial because you don't have to put yourself on the spot. Hey, every artist thinks, if you don't like my art, that means you don't like me as a person. And that's bullshit. I could be a great person and a horrible artist. It doesn't matter. So I always put that off. And year after year, I would think to myself, am I doing myself a disservice? Should I be an artist? What happens if I get to be 85 years old and I never did my own art? I'm going to regret that. I know I will. So having just started back up being an artist, it took me a little while to shake off the rust and to get going again. But I just did a piece for Disney, which was really fun. I'm enjoying it. And I'm scared about, I'm scared about how much money I'm going to make and all the traditional problems of life.
Screw that.
Screw that.
Wait, let me explain. Screw that.
Yep.
You know this better than I do, that if that situation ever happens, where you are in a in a money problems, etc., you just pick up the fucking phone and everybody will hire you. Everybody.
Yeah. Well,
so don't worry about that side of things. You're one of the few people, like 3, 2, 1, no, maybe 1. You're probably the last guy. You and JG. If JG wanted to be a director, JG Jones,
Yeah.
boom, in a second. Okay.
Yeah.
And he got offers for that, and he rejected it back in the day from some companies. But in your case, you know that if that happens, they will hire you in a second, every single one of them.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. If it happens, it happens. So far, enjoy it.
Yeah, and I am enjoying it, and I really am enjoying it. I do miss editorial. I miss the behind the scenes stuff. We'll see.
It's been 26 years. How? Of course, that's like the drug you took every day.
Yeah.
But,
I know.
If you didn't miss it, that would be really strange. But
well, I think what is important about being in the office is whether at Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, IDW. What's important is being the advocate. Every good editor has their guys and their gals.
Yep, absolutely.
That you take care of. You make sure they get the check. You make sure somebody else isn't giving them bullshit. You facilitate them. And for me, it was Adam Hughes and Darwin Cook and Tim Sale and Josh Middleton, guys like that. And I was really proud to be able to be there when there was trouble, when some shit went down. They'd call me immediately. Mm-hmm. Hey, Mark, the legal department wants to take part of my check. It's a headache, but it's important. And as now that I'm the freelancer, I'm doing a project with Scott Dunbier. Scott's looking out for me. And that's
it's Scott. I have no doubt.
Yeah, you need somebody like that, and I enjoyed being that person.
Yeah, for me it was you, and of course Jack Mayhem.
Oh, Jack's the best.
It was you and Jack. You on your side of things, Jack on the other. Sometimes you both at the same time.
Yeah.
But it was like, that was amazing. Like, okay, who are you talking to today? Okay, let me see the shit. No, this is Mark. Oh no, this is Jack. So,
all right.
The two guys, and that there was a big chunk of years where the reference for many people, artists, creators in general, it was you and Jack, because you guys had the answers we needed.
Yeah. If you look at the history of comics, you look at the great editors, those were people who did that. Hey, look, Mike Carlin, probably the best editor ever in the history of comics, except for Archie. The two of them are tied. But Joe Kubert was an editor. You had all these great people who were okay being behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to, I would like to. You used to invite me to conventions, Barcelona, Amsterdam, as the art director, and would you look at portfolios for me? And that was fun. But I want to, I want to be a little selfish now. I want to go to a convention as the artist.
The last time I invited you, remember I told you I'm not inviting you as an art director or DC guy. I'm inviting you as an artist. And you said, give me some time.
Right.
Because you were getting back into the artist groove. But remember, I always told you, you can't come as an artist or as a manager. You choose, which side, because I can have you here as an artist and no portfolios involved.
Yeah.
That is your decision. I can have somebody else, from editorial, and you can come as an artist. So for me, be as selfish as you want. I'm going to keep inviting you as many times as you want.
Well, when I finish this project, and hopefully it'll be successful, and hopefully everybody will like it.
Yeah, and then you get to work with Spider-Man. You get famous again.
Yeah.
You should do a book with Alex.
With who?
Alex Ross.
Oh, Alex Ross.
You guys together, just crazy.
He's a nut. Alex is a nut.
I know that.
He's so talented, but man, he's so specific about every comic book artist wants to draw the characters as they were when they were 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I want to draw Spider-Man versus, the Green Goblin and Mysterio. I don't care about these new villains. I want to draw the real ones. And Alex is the poster child for that. He wants to do exactly the way it was, and we all do. But I totally understand that.
It could be fun.
Sinister Six. I want to do Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six.
Spider-Man, Vulture, Mysterio, and all those guys. Of course, that would be
Yeah,
fun. That would
Vulture.
be
I would do the
fun.
Vulture.
Who would be your go-to writer? And I don't mean, or I mean, whatever you can say, to work with as an artist, or just the guy you think it represents what a comic book writer should be in terms of how he makes life easier for the artist.
I find writers kind of hard to fathom. They're hard to nail down. You want to do a project, and they're like, I've had so many writers say to me, I would kill to work with you once you go to be an artist again. And then you call them, and they're like, they don't answer your calls, and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But I'm a real big Grant Morrison fan. I love Grant's writing. He thinks in a different way. Scott Snyder's a great writer. I mean, Tom King. There's some great writers out there. Brian Azzarello's great. But for this mystery project that I just started working on, it's based on an old TV show. That's all I can say. One of my old 1960s favorite TV shows. And a friend of mine who's an artist, one of the biggest artists in the business, is a real big fan of that show too. And I called him and said, Adam, you're writing that book. And he said, fucking yes, I'm writing that book. And he started writing it. I won't tell you which Adam. That's all I'll say. But man, this guy can write. He's known as an artist, but holy shit, this guy's writing some incredible stuff. And that's what you want. You don't want, as an artist, you don't want, oh yeah, and Spider-Man's walking down the street.
Yeah.
And you want the cool stuff.
Sidewalk is this side. Let me explain why the question. I was talking to some of the artists in this, and we got to a conclusion, which is many times writers write so people has fun, but they don't care that the artist has fun with what they sent.
Yeah,
which is something that fucking kills me. And like,
yeah.
You're writing for your artist, write for him to have fun. Tell him, involve him in the story. Many times, of course, the machine has to be cranking, so it's going to say written by whatever, and then the artist's name is not there because they have to find an artist after the fact, because the machine has to keep cranking. As Dan told me today, sometimes business is business, and even if you hate it, you have to keep the machine going. That's it, and so same thing here. But when the writer knows the artist name, I read the script. Of course, I read all the scripts for my artists, as you know, and many other scripts. And I'm like, why don't you try to get the artist involved? Why don't you talk to the artist instead of panel 1, he jumps, panel 2, he chases whatever. But it's like, hey, you guy, my friend, I'm doing this. Why don't you think about doing that? Hey, change the choreography here. Something like that. Have a dialogue with the artist. Don't you think that's really missing in comic? Writers dialoguing with their artists as real partners.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely, yes. And it comes back to what I said about the camaraderie of calling up somebody in the business and saying, man, wouldn't it be cool if Batman does this? That's what's fun. Go be the garbage man. Go take out the garbage if you don't want to have fun. It's I think the poster child for that was the epitome of that was Archie Goodwin. Archie worked with all the greats, and he would say, okay, I'm working with Alex Toth. I'm working with Wally Wood. What does Wally Wood like to draw? What does Gene Colan like to draw? What does Frank Frazetta like to draw? And he would write a story about that. He was smart. And to me, the modern writer is Jeff Loeb. When Jeff worked with Tim Sale, he knew Tim. They were best friends. They'd go to lunch and they'd say, okay, wouldn't it be cool if the Joker shot whoever, whatever the storyline is? And Tim would be like, that sounds great. That sounds great. That's what you're in the business for. And I read last night that Loeb is, Jeff is a good friend. I haven't talked to him in quite a while. I hear Loeb's coming back to writing comics. Did you hear that?
No, no, I haven't. But since it's been for months saying that his contract is about to be over with Marvel Studios,
Yeah.
I am not sure if Arthur. No, I'm not. No, Arthur and Joyce didn't tell me. I know they're close with him, but
Mhm.
somebody told me that as soon as his contract was over with Marvel Studios, his plan was, after all these years, like we do with editorial, like I'm free again. I want to go back to stretching my leg as a writer. I could love that because whether people like Jeff as a writer or not, I can tell you that the people who's worked with Jeff as a writer always told me he wrote for me. He always
Yeah.
got me involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love his writing. I think he's a great storyteller. I should call him up and see if he'll write me a project down the road.
But not the Spider-Man one. That one you have to write
No,
yourself.
I'm gonna write. I already wrote that. It's
Okay.
in my head. I have the greatest story. Oh my God, I have a really good story. One of the few regrets in my life is that Darwin died, obviously,
Yeah.
but that I didn't get to draw something that he wrote, because as great an artist as Darwin Cook was, he was even better writer.
I agree. I think he was one of the best artists in his generation, but one of the best comic writers ever.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think he was. I think if you look at the last 20 years of comics, Darwin Cook is the best writer / artist. Someone who wrote his own stuff to draw.
Yeah.
You may, and I'm not putting down Frank Miller or Walt Simonson or any of those guys. Brilliant people. Oh my God, Walt is brilliant. But for me, my opinion, Darwin was really on the level of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. The great, great, greats. Darwin was a great, 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 great. And before he passed away, we were talking about doing a project together. Darwin was a kook as a guy. He was a nut, man. He was hard to deal with sometimes.
I've seen it. I've been there.
Yeah.
Seeing him going nuts and trying to kill somebody in front of me and things like that. Yeah.
One day, the most lovable guy. The next day, you wanted to strangle him. You wanted to stab him. But
and only Jimmy could control him.
Only Jimmy and Amanda.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, Amanda, of course. Yeah, he became a teddy bear in front of Amanda. That's true.
It's true. It's true. And it's not because they worked so well together. It's because they loved each other. It was a connection of friendship, of deep friendship. And Darwin and I had a big fight one time. I gave Darwin his first work in comics, and we worked together for a couple of years, and then he got crazy, or I got crazy. I'm not sure which. But we made up eventually, and we were going to do a project together. And I regret not being able to do that.
That's like me with my book about John Buscema. Have I ever told you a story?
No.
Many years ago, Planeta here in Spain, Comics Forum, which is Planeta, did a Art of John Romita Sr. book, but it was based on stuff that they got from other publishers. It wasn't original. It was just take this interview here, this art here, this Marvel stuff here. Okay, so I convinced them to do. Why don't we do an original one? All new material, and they did a Carlos Pacheco one. With original stuff. So we're like, okay, we have the John Romita one, which is reprinting of the stuff. We have the Carlos Pacheco one. Why don't we do one about John Buscema? And they were like, can you do that? Like, let me see. And I called Sal. I knew Sal Buscema very well. He was a good friend. Sal is like, hey, I want to do a book about your brother, And he's like, whoa, he's not going to believe it. And he's going to be very flattered, but I can tell you, he's not going to believe you want to do that. He's not,
right.
He doesn't care. He's painting in Italy, which is what he used to do, drawing 4 pages a day. And then 1 or 2 months a year, he could go to Italy and just paint. I think you know that. So Sal calls, John's wife, tells him, hey, this is a Spanish guy that wants to talk to you about doing a book. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So I got a phone call from Sal saying, hey, he said yes. So call him. So I, call, his wife picks up the phone and she's like, yeah, I told him about it. Just I literally on the phone, I realized he had no clue what the fuck I was talking about. So I guess it was a plan between Sal and his wife, and John's wife. So I explained, look, I'm a guy from Spain. I do articles, interviews, blah blah blah, for Spanish publishers. This is, I think, before I was even an agent, and I want to write a book about you. And he was like, me? Why? Well, because I consider you the best comic artist ever. In this, at that time in my life, it was that, and I think it hasn't changed. And I want to do a book, just you and me talking on the phone for several hours on interviews, then getting all that on the book, then getting all the sketches that you want, talking to Marvel, getting all that stuff. So a really, really in-depth book about his life and career. And he loved it. He said yes, which for me was like, that's fucking dude from Spain. I was like 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah.
And he said yes. Fucking John Buscema said yes.
Yeah.
Whoa. So I hung up the phone. And of course, since I have nothing, I have no money, no nothing, I have no system to prepare for the recording, etc. It took me like 2-3 months, I guess, to get a recorder, the clip for the old home phone. You have to get a clip to connect the recorder, so it worked. That was crazy. I didn't have the money, so I had to save some money to then convince my parents that I could do the phone call. Well, that was crazy. What happened is that he died before I could do it.
Oh man.
So that was the shit. For whatever time, I didn't have the chance to get, to give John Buscema his legacy book. It wasn't, and it still is me writing a book. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, sure.
It was giving John his, because it was like, there's no legacy. There's no John Buscema legacy.
His spotlight.
The spotlight. Everybody took him for granted. I'm glad that, after all this time, How to Do Comics the Marvel Way has in a way become that, his legacy. But that's my regret. Just your Darwin. Mine is never have been able to give John the legacy book he deserved.
Yeah. That's sad. I mean, because we all know, people in the business know how incredibly talented he was.
Yeah.
But I worry that he's going to be forgotten by the new fans, the younger fans.
Yeah, and I don't think you can get to Arthur, Jim, and the others. You get Golden. People does the connection. Michael Golden, Arthur Adams, Jim Lee.
Yeah.
But you don't have Arthur Adams. But you don't have Michael Golden. You don't have John Buscema.
Yeah.
Or Garcia Lopez. That connection. Like, guys, the Schwarzenegger Conan is fucking John Buscema. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
We all love the Barry Smith. Of course, we do love the Barry Smith because that's genius.
Yeah.
But Conan, we all know, the image of Conan we all know is the John Buscema one. The image that we saw in the movies. The movies are based in John Buscema's Conan, not in Barry's Conan. So I hope it doesn't. But as I said, even when I was that young, I was thinking he needs a legacy because of the same reason you just mentioned. I'm worried people are going to forget him. But let's just hope they don't.
I hope not. I hope not. There's so many great artists. I mentioned growing up the Marvel guy. You look at Gene Colan, Jim Steranko, John Romita, the great John Romita Sr., not to mention John Romita Jr. But Buscema, Buscema and Garcia Lopez, they're the same person to me.
In a big way, not that you mentioned, it is, because they are the two sides of the same coin.
Can you? Yeah, I think so. Can you say so-and-so was better than Garcia Lopez? No. Can you say somebody was better? Name a name. Was he better than John Buscema? No.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Maybe people will disagree, but pound by pound, as they say with boxers, I don't think there's anybody who can be even close to Buscema and Garcia Lopez. They were just pure comic art.
Yeah.
Pure comic.
I put right there. I put Joe Kubert, but he was a different kind of artist. And again, we
could add Neil Adams too. To that the big poker.
Yeah.
Maybe each on their own thing. It would be Neil Adams, Joe Kubert, John Buscema, and Garcia Lopez. I think those four define comic art.
I think so too. And modern artists, I think you can never underestimate what Mike Mignola has done.
Absolutely.
I think of the modern artists. I mentioned a few of them: Adam Hughes, Bill Sienkiewicz, Mignola, Jim Lee, Art Adams, Michael Golden. Michael Golden invented modern comics, current comics.
Yep. Yeah. And many you guys, if you don't know Michael.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yep.
Look at this.
Who's that? Stelfreeze?
Yes.
Wow, nice.
So I agree. Without Michael Golding, as I was saying before, you don't have Arthur. Without Arthur, you don't have Jim Lee and many of the others. That the influence is there. And in a way, I don't know if you agree, but I don't know if you can have Mignola without Golden.
If you look at, I think if you look at Mike's early work, there was some.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the initial work. All the way to Wall of Krypton.
Yeah. Yeah.
And afterwards, of course, he deviates completely. But no, I don't know. But the beginning in his initial work, even Batman Gotham by Gaslight, although that's a bit more his own already. The time while he was being by Craig Russell.
Yeah. It was unique. It was odd. It was odd, unique work, and he eventually became Mike Mignola.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think he was very influenced by Jack Kirby and Jeff Jones, the painter Catherine Jones.
Yep.
But Golden definitely. There's so many talented people. For me, Toth was by far the best of all the people we mentioned. But look at Paul Pope. Brilliant artist. If this was the 1950s, 60s, 70s, he would have never gotten hired. His stuff is so idiosyncratic. But thank God there's so many. Eduardo Risso. Look at Eduardo Risso. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm leaving out 60 great artists because I know I am. Josh Middleton, Ryan Sook. I love Ryan Sook.
Yeah, there's, Daniel Acuna. Just to name one.
Daniel's incredible. Doug Mankey.
Oh, yeah.
We could go on forever. We always
going to forget one, but the names that meant the jumps in comic art, we are always going to agree. We are going to go back to the four names we said. Neil Adams, Jose Garcia Lopez, Joe Kubert. What was the fourth? Shit. And Joe Buscema, of course. And then we jump to Michael Golden, and from Michael we jump to Art, and to Art we jump to Image guys. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be those names, and of course we cannot forget John Romita Sr., as you said. Felipe Gonzalez says Darwin Cook New Frontier was amazing. Sometimes I reread Loser's Story. I don't know what he means. I'm sorry. I love the book DC Comic Art of Darwin Cook, very complete. Darwin Cook's Parker adaptations are superb. Those are a lesson of storytelling, I gotta say.
Ever notice I'm gonna say something I really shouldn't open my mouth about, on the Darwin Cook book, the Art of Darwin Cook?
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice what's on the cover that should not be on that cover?
I don't remember that cover right now. Kill me.
I almost got fired over this.
The Art of Darwin Cook. Now I have to watch it on Google.
Hang on, I'll be right back.
DC Comics, The Art of Darwin Cook?
Yeah, this one.
Oh, that's not, no, Graphic King. Okay, that's not the cover I was looking at. The one I was looking at was the profile. Yes.
Oh, right, yeah. Someone on this book, on the cover, is giving a rude hand gesture to somebody else. And that's all I'll say about it. I didn't realize that when we published it. Nobody did. And I got called into the boss's office and I got yelled at. I missed it.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Let's talk about John Buscema again.
Yes, guys. If you're gonna check it, that's your thing. We won't. I just checked that cover and saw. No, let's move on. Darwin Cook's Parker adaptation is superb. As I said, I think they're a lesson in storytelling. Luis Guaraña said Paula. Mark checked my portfolio just for 15 minutes. It was amazing for clarity. Everything was on point. The realism and encouragement at the same time of with Mark's words. That I still treasure that portfolio review today.
Wow.
An amazing artist with a very clear knowledge of what this work means. That's what Luz Guaranya.
Wow.
Paula Ventimiglia, you're fortunate. Felipe Gonzalez, Bonito Still Freeze, thank you. Chiarello was the witness and protagonist of the transition of the old school to the new generation of the 80s and 90s. Not just a witness, he was a part of it.
I don't think it's true, but it's awfully nice for him to say that.
Okay. And Felipe, how do you feel? Okay, that's a really good question because it's true. How do you feel as an editor? You were as an editor a big part of what helped make the best comic books in DC did. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to understand the question. So I think he means how did it feel for you being a part of making some of the best comics DC did during your time?
That's very flattering for someone to say that. While we were doing them, we never thought, oh, we're making history. We're doing something people are going to remember. We just wanted to put out books that were fun, that we would enjoy ourselves. And, when I left DC a year ago, I said to my girlfriend, did I just waste 26 years of my life? And the outpouring from the creative community and from fans on Facebook and social media was so sweet. It was so heartwarming that I realized, no, of course I didn't waste 26 years, because people remember Solo. They remember Wednesday Comics. They remember Batman Black and White. They remember A New Frontier. There were books that we came up with, but I'm glad that people look back on those and say those were great books.
Because
it means a lot to me. Oh, thanks. That means a lot to me. They were fun.
They were that I said it on the ad for this conversation, and I mean it. You know perfectly well that I don't bullshit anybody. I don't have the time or the inclination. I'm actually here, as you know. But I think that every single book you edited was a synonym of innovation. I don't know if it was, as you said, by instinct or calculation or what, but there was something. The next step needs to be given. Why am I going to edit the same classic book, as you said, with the guy punching each other and that's it? Why don't we go one step further?
But anyone who says I'm going to innovate is full of shit. You can't consciously say I'm going to change the industry. I'm going to make something. That's arrogance. I just, myself and a few other editors. Look at what Mike Carlin did at DC. Mike Carlin killed Superman. It made it made DC Comics millions and millions, if not billions of dollars.
And he should have gotten big royalties out of that.
He should have, yeah. If
the industry was fair as I think it is, the corporate shit, editors should get a big chunk of the royalties for that money. For the money they make.
I agree. Business isn't fair. Business in the world isn't fair. You just have to protect yourself. And hey, we all got paychecks. We knew what we were doing. It was a fun job. That's fine. Yeah. But I think my point is Mike didn't say, let's kill Superman to make a lot of money. Yep. He said, it'll be a good story. It has to be a good story. It has to be dramatic and well done, or there's no reason to do it. And that was his impetus to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Felipe says, I love when they comics on Solo. How did you come with the idea to publish this kind of anthologies? Well, I think Black and White is an anthology too, in a way, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. It's short stories, several short stories. Batman Black and White was so easy. Batman's the most popular character in the history of comics. People love short stories.
You gotta say along with the Spider-Man, so Marvel, Ricky.
Well, Spider-Man's my favorite. I think he's the best, but everybody, I've always said everybody has their favorite character. You may like Superman, you may like Wonder Woman, you may like the Fantastic Four. but everybody loves Batman. Everybody on top of it all. But what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying.
The anthologies. How did you get anthologies? You were saying Batman and Black and White was really easy.
Right. So I figured, okay, the most popular character. Everybody loves short stories. Everybody loves an 8-page story. I used to read Creepy and Eerie, the Warren, the old Warren comics when I was a kid. I loved an 8-page story. I thought Black and White was a neat thing to do that DC hadn't done. And when I pitched the project, Paul Levitz, who was the head of DC, ran DC at the time, he said, it's been proven that Black and White comics don't sell. The last one we did wasn't that big of a hit. Well, because it was an OMAC comic. It was a Black and White OMAC comic. It was a really good comic. I forget who did it. I think John Byrne. It was really
no the OMAC. I have an original page of that. It looks amazing. The OMAC comic is I think it's probably one of the last amazing John Byrne comics. It's a really good comic. But
yeah, and we haven't mentioned John Byrne, another great talent. Yep. Changed comics, changed the history of comics. But I figured, so you have all those elements, and because I know all these artists, I'll get the greatest artists. It was fun. It was a no-brainer. It wasn't like we're going to change comics. No, it was just something I thought was fun. The same for Solo. You look at the history of comics, and not everything was superheroes. You had romance comics. Look, the only comics I collect to this day are romance comics from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Toth, Rick Estrada, guys like that. I mean, some beautiful stuff. But there used to be Westerns and prison stories and science fiction comic books and romance comic books. Now everything was, at that point, everything was superheroes. And I said to Archie, when Archie Goodwin was still at DC, I said, could we do a book that was just Westerns? And he said, it's difficult because people, if you do a one shot, people don't know what it is and you don't have any momentum. So I went back to my office and thought, and over the course of time, I realized, well, why not pick an artist who's really popular and famous and has a big following, and let them tell all different genre stories.
Yep.
So you did have you have Jordi Bernay do a Western and a Batman story, and it's just fun stuff.
And what about Wednesday Comics? What did they say when you said, I want to do, the newspaper format?
Paul, who I love, Paul, he would always say no to me. He
was the gatekeeper.
He really was, and he did a great job. He did a brilliant job being the boss. Impossible job. I'm not a real I've been talking too much to you today, but we're pals, so it's like a conversation. But I'm not a verbal person. I'm a visual person.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always come up with a project and go up to Paul's office and have thought about how to pitch it to Paul. And then I'd get up to Paul's office and I would just babble and make no sense. And Paul would say, yeah, we don't want to do that. Thanks anyway. But, he was looking at the dollars and cents and he didn't think it would sell. So I'd go back to my office and be real pissed off. And then 2 months later, I would pitch it again. And, he eventually said yes to most of these things, and thank God. And then Dan and Jim took over as my bosses, and they said yes to a couple things.
Well, nice. No, Felipe asks, nowadays with technology, artists can make pictorial effects or add them. What do you think about it? Do you remember how many you spend it? I don't know. I guess he means that I don't understand the question, Felipe. I'm sorry, but I'm going to rephrase it myself. Do you feel you have the same feeling painting them in a digital way that you could do in a painting by the traditional in a canvas?
I always said to myself, as as digital really started happening, I said to myself, I will never do digital art. I'm a watercolorist. I'll draw on a piece of paper, but I don't want to be a computer artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the course of time, you'll do a painting of whatever, and you'll think, well, what color background should I do? Shit, if I put red down, I'm stuck with it. So what I started doing was I would take the drawing and I would scan it, and then in Photoshop, I would try red in the background, or I would try blue in the background. And then whatever worked best, I'd go back to the studio and put in the red that worked or the blue that worked. I work a lot that way. It's still the basics of it is traditional art, but then you go in with Photoshop and tweak a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's saying, Felipe is clarifying and saying, how much time does it take you, to do a page? I guess, like painting a page.
I'm just starting this. This comic, the interiors, but it's not painted. It's traditional pen and ink, pencil and pen and ink, and Photoshop color, and it's taken me forever. I better get faster at a page, or it's going to.
That's normal. You're rusty.
I am rusty.
It's been a while.
Otherwise it's going to take me a year and a half to do 3 issues.
No, you gotta finish faster.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is waiting.
Yep.
You gotta do it. So Spider-Man is Peter Parker is not a guy filled with patience. So
it's true. Hey, I hope that Marvel wants me to do it once I finish.
I cannot fathom Marvel saying no to it. I literally can't. CB, Ricky, Rebirth, I cannot see those guys.
Yeah. Casada.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly. I cannot see, although Joe is not that involved in the day-to-day, but I cannot see any of those guys saying no to you. And if they don't, I will throw this at their head. There's no much use I have for it anyway. So anyway, guys, it's Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is saying yes from... Hey, Jose Luis, are you watching? Because he's WhatsApping me right now. I think he's watching, but he's always quiet. He's never sending comments. So, hello, Jose Luis.
Jose is watching this?
I think so because he's WhatsApping me now, but he never makes comments. So I'm trying to see. I just sent him a WhatsApp saying, "Are you watching?" But anyway, I don't want. What?
Let's talk bad about Jose.
Yeah, he's just an asshole.
Shitty artist.
Yeah, it's like the worst artist ever in the history of comics.
Oh my God.
We cannot.
Hero. My absolute hero in comics.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I will repeat it many times. The best comic book artist ever, and one of the sweetest, best human beings.
Yeah. Real sweetheart.
Yes.
There's
anyway, guys. Yeah, go.
No, go ahead.
Luis Guaraña is asking, will there be more collaborations by you, illustrations in the Criterion collection?
I hope so. That's a fun job. That's a really fun gig. There's an art director at Criterion, Eric Skillman, who is a brilliant art director. He's the best art director I've ever worked with. And, I've done a couple. I did a Charlie Chaplin movie, the box art.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fun stuff to do. I hope he calls me again to do some more movies, because I love their product just as a fan. I love the movies they put out as a fan, but as an illustrator, it's really. I'd
love to see you doing your own version of Bullet for a Criterion collection.
A Bullet, yeah. Well, I'm a big Robert Mitchum fan, and
okay.
I keep telling Eric, man, if you do any more Mitchum movies or Montgomery Clift movies, you gotta call me, because I love those guys. Absolutely.
And if they don't, they would be making a big mistake. Beautiful work, Circus is what Luis is saying. He knows your Criterion work, I can see.
Wow.
Anyway, guys, I don't want to keep Mark for much longer. I told him an hour, and it's been 99 minutes already. And the guy's got to work, so he does finish, that secret stuff.
I'm not gonna go to work. My son Jack and I watched Blade Runner last night. He had never seen Blade Runner, and he'd seen parts of it, and we watched three.
Which one of the versions?
Well, I wanted to watch the original one with the voiceover, but
with the voiceover, yeah.
But I said let's watch the director's the final cut because technically it looks better. But we watched almost the whole thing last night, and then the phone rang. So as soon as I get off, we're gonna finish watching it now.
Okay. So that's a really good reason to go. Son is waiting to watch Blade Runner. If Son was waiting to watch Reanimator or Alien Resurrection or
right.
or Rocky 6, something like that, I could be telling the son, hey Jack, I'm sorry, wait, but it's Blade Runner, so we gotta cut. So thank you so much, everybody. First of all, Joe, please, Mark, don't cut because I want to say proper goodbye after this.
Sure.
And I will see if Paloma is still here, because if she's here, she's gonna want to say hello. So thank you for everything. Thank you for being here. It's been amazing. I miss you like you can't imagine, my friend.
We'll see each other soon.
I hope so. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Mark. You can say goodbye now.
Thanks, David, and thanks for the people who watched this. I hope I didn't waste everybody's time this morning.
No, believe me, they're really happy. And to all of you, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend. Muchas gracias. Ten un buen fin de semana. Monday, el lunes, con nosotros, aquí, here, Mr. Jim Starling.
Wow.
Have a good weekend. Tened un buen fin de semana. Hasta luego. En 3, 2, 1.